Hi, and welcome back to Journey to Recovery, Chapter 1, Understanding Addiction. So let's talk a little bit more about what addiction really is. Addiction, and this is the technical definition, addiction is the continued use of a person, activity, or substance. All right, that's going to be the first important part. In order to escape from negative feelings, second important part, despite experiencing negative consequences as a result of use. So let's look at this. The continued use of a person, activity, or substance. We're looking we're looking for something that makes us feel good. We're looking for something that helps us escape from reality because our reality is too painful to face. In order to escape from negative feelings. Now, sometimes this is physical. Most of the time, it's psychological. It can be both. So we're finding something to help us escape from pain, physical, emotional, those sorts of things. The key is, despite experiencing negative consequences as a result of use. We all know somebody who has a bad week and goes to the bar on Friday and has a few beers in order to de-stress. Do they have an addiction? Probably not. If they're not doing it despite having negative consequences. So if they're doing it and there's no fallout, they go home, they sleep it off, they wake up the next morning and mow the lawn, no big deal. It's when they go out and they spend $600 and they get a DUI and they come home and fight with their wife about it. Then it's a problem. So we want to look at these behaviors. And I use that term really broadly because we use a lot of different things to escape. And say, okay, I'm doing this, and I know I'm doing this to help myself chill out, escape, feel better. It's not fixing the problem, but it's helping me escape. Okay, so that's not necessarily a problem. Is it causing problems in other areas of my life? If it is, then we're talking about the beginning, possibly, of an addiction. Addictions are a solution to a problem, a bad solution, but a solution. And this is one of the things I really want to drive home to people, is that addictions don't make you bad. Addictions are the only way you had left to survive. You were just like, I'm out, I don't know what else to do, I've got to make the pain stop. So if you think about addictions that way, I'm not saying we can use that as our excuse. I'm saying that it's what you did until now to help you survive. So we need to help you figure out better ways to survive. Addictions, even behavioral ones, mess with your brain chemistry. And we'll go into all that in the chapter on pharmacology. But what I want you to understand is that even the rush from bungee jumping or excessive use of pornography or gambling messes with your brain chemistry. It'll throw you off balance. So it'll take a while for all those synapses to kind of get back in whack and used to what normal people feel or what normal is for you. This is important to realize because as you detox, as you start using better coping skills, as you stop using your escape behaviors, there's going to be a period where you don't feel so good. The things that used to bring you pleasure, not so much. When I teach this in group therapy, we talk about Winnie the Pooh. And early recovery, people often feel like Eeyore. They're not super depressed, but just nothing makes them happy. Nothing makes them too sad. They're just kind of getting along. There are no colors. It's just all gray. You don't want to stay like that for long. You're not going to stay sober if you stay like that for long because you're not happy. You're going to look for a way to escape again. So we need to figure out how it is that you are going to get through early recovery. Let's look back a little bit more at who develops an addiction. Genetics play a part. Some people are more genetically susceptible to the effects of alcohol or certain drugs. I know for me, I'm a lightweight. I take 2 Benadryl, and I'm like drooling on myself. Half a Vicodin, and you won't see me for 6 or 8 hours. I'm just like, ugh. I'm really susceptible to any sort of mood altering or well, any substances actually. So genetics can make you more predisposed. Genetics are also involved in the brain chemistry that's responsible for anxiety disorders, depression, those sorts of things. If you already have anxiety or depression, and then life starts handing you lemons, then genetics are going to kind of kick in and go, really, life sucks right now. You need to escape. So we need to consider, or at least be cognizant of, the genetic component. Everybody doesn't start at the same 50-yard line. Unstable family environment. If you've got chaos going on at home, guess what? Your family is generally your first-line social support. Social support is our greatest buffer against stress. If your first-line social support is your greatest cause of stress, then you're going, I don't have anywhere to dump this. I don't have any support. Family history of substance use, addiction. We learn as we grow up by watching those around us. If we see people, if we see dad come home every night and throw back a 12-pack because that's how he relaxes, we come to accept that as normal. If we don't see people, guess what? Guess what? Here's a clue. We are not born with coping skills. Children learn coping skills by watching their parents. When their parents are stressed, how do their parents cope? When they're stressed, how do their parents help them cope? This is something children learn along the way. So if the parent is addicted, then the child learns addictive behaviors. The child learns escape behaviors instead of coping behaviors. Early use of drugs. Unfortunately, research has shown us that early use of drugs and alcohol has a much more detrimental effect on your brain chemistry and everything neurologically as you're growing up. So early use of drugs sets you up, makes you predisposed to addiction later in life. Childhood trauma, same thing. They have shown on repeated occasions that trauma that leads to things like post-traumatic stress disorder actually causes organic changes in the brain. Okay, so early childhood trauma not only sets you up with all these bad memories and lack of trust and lack of feeling safe and all this other psychological stuff, but it also may set you up by causing brain changes. And I'm not going to say brain damage, I'm going to say brain changes. The cool thing about our brain, even when you get older, it's easier when you're younger, but even when you get older, your brain can learn workarounds. Your brain is very resilient, so it can help you be resilient. We just have to recognize kind of what's going on, understand where the dysfunctions are so we can address them. Anything else that overwhelms your ability to cope. So let's go back. If you are genetically predisposed to addiction, you know, it's in your family, depression, mental health disorders run in your family, there's an unstable family environment, you started using alcohol or drugs early, were exposed to trauma, do you think you developed good coping skills? Probably not. So now it doesn't take much to overwhelm your ability to cope. Likewise, if you don't have the strongest coping skills, even if you don't have any of that other stuff, if you never learned strong coping skills, life can be very overwhelming. You want to pay attention to your personal tendencies. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't make you less than. It just makes you you. And we have to figure out you before we can help you fix you. So, do I have an addiction? Have you tried to cut down and failed? Let's talk about internet porn. Have you tried to cut down to an hour a day or not watching internet porn every day and not been successful? Same thing for gambling, drinking, drugs. You know, you see where I'm going. Do you spend more time thinking about or engaging in the activity than you intended? You planned on looking at porn for an hour. You ended up looking at porn for 4 hours. You planned on going to the bar and having a beer. Before you know it, it's midnight and you're going to be in trouble when you get home. Do you continue to do it even though it has directly or indirectly caused you multiple problems? Now, directly would be maybe getting a DUI because you were drunk. Indirectly could be getting a divorce because your spouse says you drink too much and you refuse to stop. And do you get angry or defensive if someone expresses concern about your behavior? This is a curious one. Why do you do that? Because the addiction, whatever this is that helps you escape, is the only thing that has consistently made the pain stop. So you're going to protect that at all costs. You're just going to kind of bring it over here and go, oh, there's not a problem. Nope, you don't see this. I'm going to hide it back here. I'm not getting rid of it because it's the only thing that's helping me survive right now. There's a reason you get defensive about it. Now, that doesn't mean we can say, all right, fine, be defensive and keep your coping skills and defense mechanisms. We need to look at what's going to be healthier. And here's my little soapbox for today. You are not your addiction. Too often we refer to people as addicts. Well, if I'm an addict and I quit using, then what am I if I'm not an addict anymore? If you have addicted behaviors, you always have the ability, there's always the chance that you will return to addicted behaviors. No doubt. But you are a person. Addiction refers to a set of behaviors you used to survive when nothing else worked. If you had cancer, would you be cancer? No. When I have the flu, I don't go to work and go, hi everybody, I'm the flu. They may look at me like I'm the plague, but when roles or behaviors become all-encompassing, letting go of them becomes more difficult. Think about, for example, being a mother or a father. That's a big part of my life right now. Now, when my kids move out, do I stop being a mother? No. I'm always going to be a mother, one way or another. And I've been called a mother a lot of different times. But what we want to look at is, what does it mean when that role changes? What does it mean if that role goes away? When people who are in law enforcement or in the military retire and they're no longer cops, they're no longer soldiers, a lot of them have a hard time readjusting because they have taken on that role as their entire persona. I want you to remember, you are not your addiction. Your addiction is behaviors. You need to figure out who you are, and you've probably forgotten. That's gotten lost in the addictive process. When you talk about your addiction, say, I have an addiction. It's semantic. It's like when you're talking to your child, you can say, you're a bad boy, or you can say, that was a really bad choice. Same basic concept. You're upset with something that happened. The first one says you as a person are bad. The second one says you did a behavior that I really disapprove of. Now, which one is healthier? Before you started addiction, who were you? What did you like? What made you happy? What was important to you? Now, you may be going back to when you were 9. So some of these things may not apply. But you've got a lot of time to make up for, to figure out what it is you like now. What fulfills you? When you find other ways to cope with life on life's terms, who will you be? When you're not going to the bar every night, what are you going to do? What are you going to do with that time? When you're not gambling or looking at porn, what hobbies do you have? Who are you? What are your interests? What makes you valuable? What things are important to you, like being a spouse or being a parent or being a leader in your church? Whatever the case may be, you need to define who you are as a human being aside from your behaviors. Remember, addiction is a last-ditch effort to survive. It can start as the result of external factors or because something happens to mess with your brain chemistry. Something overwhelmed your ability to deal with life on life's terms. Addiction is a term that refers to a set of behaviors, not a person. You're a person. You're a survivor. Your addiction helped you survive until now. Now let's figure out how to help you thrive. I will see you in the next video.